Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Drummond, a seasoned tech entrepreneur who's taken multiple companies to IPO, and he's now leading MedPal AI, a new player in the digital health space that's just listed on AIM. Jason, great to have you.
Good to see you, Martin.
So, for those who are unfamiliar with MedPal AI, how would you summarize the business and what's the problem you're solving?
Well, the problem we're solving is really around connected health devices. We're now in a kind of a generation of people who really kind of care about their health. If we look at gym memberships at all-time highs, and more than half the population in the UK and actually in the US have at least one, if not two, connected health devices. So it could be anything from Apple Watches to Aura Rings to Fitbits, Garmin's. There's a huge volume of the devices out there, hundreds of millions of these connected health devices. And if you have multiple devices, it creates a bit of a problem because do you really want to go and look at five different apps in the morning to see what your different stats are? The other issue is that the information often is very fragmented, different places. Often they give you the stats. They don't give you the analysis. They just say, okay, this is your resting heart rate or whatever, and you've got to try and interpret it, which is a bit complicated. And the other really issue is around kind of prevention in if you can spot trends, can you warn someone there might be a problem down the road that they can address. So with MedPal, the core product, we have an app on Android and an iOS. We aggregate data from over 100, 200 connected health devices, all the different apps, pretty much every device you could think of, we can connect and collect the data. We bring it to our platform, and then we use really advanced AI to make sense of it. So that's the kind of the core product. It's a £3 a month app, and it gives you access to effectively all of your health data in one place with advanced AI, which gives you really it's all about making you feel better and live longer. That's kind of what we're focusing on.
Well, listen, you've led multiple tech businesses like FairFX, for example. What inspired the pivot, into digital health, and how's your past experiences, I suppose, shaped the approach you've done for building this business?
Well, FairFX is great. When we came up with the idea of multi-currency prepaid debit cards, 7 years before Revolut, and an idea I had, and we built out the business within 3 years to 1 million customers in the UK. We were acquiring those customers one by one, so that was a learning curve. I mean, in the end, it was great, but it took time to build the business. So with MedPal, we're going about it in a slightly different way. We've done some amazing partnerships, which give us access to large numbers of people very, very quickly, which is interesting. But I think if you have a good idea, it's how quickly can you scale it. And as you said, FairFX, we took it from a startup to over 200 staff. We just got acquired. We took it onto the AIM market in 2015. I think it was around a £20 million market cap, and just got bought for 300 million at Christmas. So I've done a few of these. This, I believe MedPal is probably the biggest opportunity I've had. I mean, there's a real problem around primary care, healthcare. I was living in the US and really saw firsthand. The budget for healthcare in the US is 4.7 trillion. It's nearly 5 times the budget of defense, and it's considered 18% of GDP, and it's considered that people aren't very well looked after in the US in terms of healthcare. So it seemed there was a real issue there and a real problem that we could try and use advanced tech and AI to tackle.
Okay, well, that's fascinating. I've downloaded the app myself. I think it's brilliant. I love the UX and the UI. Clearly, there's a lot of thought being put into that, and clearly your experience shows through. But can you talk us through the business model?
Yeah, so the business model, it's a freemium model. So basically, you sign up to the app, you agree to pay for the app in a month's time, and you can cancel the subscription within the first 30 days. So the same model that you see used by Anthropic for Claude or OpenAI or for ChatGPT. It's a model which is interesting. If you see some of the fastest growing in terms of businesses, in terms of revenue, ARR, have been created in the last 2 or 3 years, specifically around AI services. So that's the kind of it's the model we're using. Where it's slightly different is in terms of distribution, which I guess we'll come on to a little bit later with the Parsley deal and so on. But it's that's the model. And then what we do is we are looking to upsell them into other services. So we have a premium service which is going to give you access to in future around telehealth and telemedicine. So that's really kind of the direction that we're going. The AI is really fascinating because the AI, if you can consider, has been trained on pretty much every document, every piece of information that exists in the world. It's read every medical journal, every medical book, and it's incredibly clever. I'm sure if you've used ChatGPT, it thinks as a doctor, it thinks as a surgeon, it thinks. So we've been sort of, really fine tuning that AI to get incredible results. But we're interested in seeing how we can then, once you get to a point where it's saying, okay, we need to bring a professional in, how we then hand that user over to that professional. And so we're looking at how we monetize the business around that as well.
Okay, well, you mentioned the Apache deal, and obviously that's opened doors to major corporates like David Lloyd and the like. Can you sort of walk us through how an enterprise licensing will scale? And, are you already seeing traction in that sort of B2B business?
Yeah, so we signed a deal with eParty. They're one of, I think they might be the biggest, if not, they're one of the biggest employee benefits companies in Europe. They have over 20 million employees on their program, which is pretty exciting. I mean, basically, if you're a very large corporate, you've got 50,000 staff, you go to someone like eParty and they run an employee benefits program for you. So that could have elements of health. Gym memberships, whatever they want to do to basically to bring benefits to their employees. We've signed a deal with them, which gives us access to those users. Specifically in the UK, 11 million of the employees on their system have gym memberships. So that's what was really exciting to me, was that they've got 11 million gym memberships with these employees in the UK. It's a huge percentage of the adult population in the UK. We went to them with a proposition and saying that we've got this great app. It promotes health and so on, and we agreed a deal. So we're giving effectively we're giving MedPal to those 11 million users in the UK. What's very interesting is eParsley has a relationship not only with the end user, with the employee, they also have a relationship with the gyms. So, for example, David Lloyd clubs you mentioned, and I'm a member of David Lloyd personally. They've got 1.2 million members with David Lloyd, which is a huge number, which is pretty exciting. But they also have relationships with the employees, with the employers, which is interesting. So there's some really good opportunities. At the moment, we're picking off gym by gym, coming up with a dedicated marketing program to those users. We're also trying to encourage the gyms to not only just market to the eParty employees, but to entire membership. So in theory, we could get to not just to 11 million; it could be to a much bigger number. So that's really exciting, and that's it's signed, it's done, and we're literally rolling out the first deal in the next week to 2 weeks.
Well, that's fascinating. And given the share price performance, clearly the market is very excited about the prospects of MedPal AI. What do you think is resonating most with investors, though? And how are you planning to convert this early enthusiasm into long-term, sustainable value?
Yeah, I'm very focused on that. If you know my track record with virtual internet, FairFX, various businesses, these are all turned into very sizable scale companies. We've had some pretty decent exits as well. So I think if anyone knows me, they know I've got a good track record in scaling businesses and growing top line growth, which is what this is really all about. And that's really what I think investors in AIM are looking for. They're looking for those companies which really can stand out from the crowd. I think healthcare in itself is one of the biggest markets in the world. I think what's interesting is that what we're trying to do around the democratization of primary care is a huge problem that needs to be fixed. I mean, not everyone can afford to have Bupa or insurance where they can get access to GPs quickly. For the rest of us, you wake up in the morning, you're not feeling great. You need to, got a throat infection. You need to speak to a GP. You don't have private insurance, so you call your GP, and it's all about priority. And if you're not that ill, then it's very difficult to get to see them. We think AI with triage is there's a way in which we can almost like mass market primary care, and using very, very clever technology with the use of, at the end with the GPs and the pharmacists and so on, bring them into, in a very, very clever way to basically, give a service which doesn't really exist at this time at a price point which is accessible to everyone. So this is kind of mass market consumer healthcare, which people have tackled it, but we have a take on it, which I think people understand the upside is immense.
Well, that's interesting because you've been clear that MedPal isn't a clinical product, but is clinical certification something you would consider, or do you see it more of a sort of insurer integration and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a partnership. So we went to a lot of trouble I mean, one of the reasons we can scale the business so quickly is that we're trying to avoid some of those regulatory pitfalls. So we've been deemed by both. But it's a very interesting point because it took 5 months to get the app approved by Apple. Apple kind of sees themselves as a bit of a kind of regulator, which makes sense. So we're one of the first AI specific around health, wellness, and so on to be approved by Apple and Google on the Play Store, which is pretty exciting. So puts in a very, very interesting, unique kind of position. So we've kind of, and you can imagine being a public company, we've gone through a lot of work with the health teams at Hill Dickinson, our lawyers, making sure we get that right. But we think there's a great opportunity, and there's a moment where we can just pass the user over to a professional in a very clever, very efficient, kind of very cool tech way, which is going to be a really interesting thing for us to do, and I think also it creates a very defensible business.
Well, I think it'd be fair to say this isn't your first rodeo. What's the long-term vision for MedPal? Where do you see it going? And do you eventually see a sort of strategic sale to some large health tech or wearable giant? Could that be on the cards?
Well, I think if we get this even half right, there's going to be plenty of opportunities in the future in terms of exit. Certainly, for the next 2 to 3 years, we've got some very ambitious plans of building out a business, particularly across Europe, which we've done successfully. I've actually exited a couple of big businesses to US tech companies in the past, where we built a European footprint, and so I think if we get this even half right, there'll be plenty of opportunity there. One of the interesting things, one of the other areas we're working on, we've talked about big distribution deals with the pass-in employee benefits and the gym chains. The other big opportunity, of course, is with insurance. The insurance companies, the ability to, for example, reduce insurance premiums based on levels of fitness and someone's approach to lifestyle is really interesting. So, it's quite interesting. It's the companies that we're actually talking to now, and the types of companies is quite fascinating. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to have our heads down. We're going to be running at this 100 miles an hour, building the biggest business we can across Europe. And the reality is, the share price will take care of itself if we deliver. We're focused on that, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to exit, I'm sure, in 3 to 5 years' time.
That's great, Jason. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. MedPal is clearly aiming to carve out a strong position in the wellness tech space, and I, for one, and I'm sure many other investors, will be watching closely as things unfold.
Thank you,
Thank
Martin.